Okay, if you are here for a talk on cold fusion, you're in the wrong room. How's everyone doing? Good, yay! Last talk, right? Last talk and we're done. Can go to happy hour, yay! I hope not too many people had a food coma after the lunch. So hi everyone. My name is Azad Mardan. If you haven't heard, how many of you have heard about me from my books, blog posts? Yay, a few people. For everyone else, sorry, that's my fault. You don't know yet about me, but hopefully after this talk, maybe next year, come next year, and maybe you'll see some of my books. I've wrote 14 books, have a press, wonderful publishers. So if you're thinking about publishing a book, you should talk to my publisher, A Press. Oh, yeah, that's my new book. We did a signing today. So I also like my coffee with coconut oil. Thank you. I like my coffee with coconut oil. I tried it with butter. I like the coconut oil better. Coffee with butter, that's a Paleolithic thing, really good for you. And I worked at this small fintech startup you probably never heard about. It's called Capital One. Some of my books, so Practical Node.js, it was #1 on Amazon.com for many months when you search for Node.js. So obviously I'm obsessed with JavaScript and Node.js and the full stack JavaScript. That's why I give these talks. That's why I write my blog posts. And then not all of them about JavaScript. So one book is about how to write books. It's called ProgWriter. And then I'm like, well, that was a good book, so what to do next, right? So I wrote ProgWriter 2.0, which is a book what to do after you've written books. So in the beginning of JavaScript, it was very easy. It was really good. It's like all you needed to do is just create a HTML file and put some JavaScript. You can even do inline JavaScript. That was totally fine. You wouldn't get judged, no bad code reviews. Like you can do that. It's totally cool. So document get element by ID. We didn't even have get element by class because that wasn't part of the browser API, right? So I remember good old days. Dreamweaver, Wheezy, what you see is what you get. So it will generate lots of code. Most of it is junk, but it looks kind of okay. So sometimes you would just ship it. Who cares? Tables, remember the tables? There was actually like some interview requirements, like you have to know table list design, table list layout. You should be able to use divs and CSS. That was just recent, like 10 years ago, right? Not that long ago. So all you need to do is just know a little bit CSS, a little bit of JavaScript, mostly HTML. But not everything was great and minimalistic. You would always see crazy Internet Explorer errors, and you wouldn't even know what to do with them. It got a little bit better, but still no dev tools, right? So no great debuggers. And then you would see an error about an error. Yeah, IE5, IE6 started to have a little bit something similar to what we have like DevTools. So now things are different. Things are better, or maybe not, right? So you need to know what to use, imports versus require. You need to know Webpack or Gulp, right? And you need to know what to use, one versus the other. Then the big topic, React versus Angular, right? Who is for Angular? Raise your hand.
Yeah.
Sorry. Who is for React?
Yeah.
Who is for Vue? Yeah. Who is for Backbone? Vue versus pure React, right? So pure React is kind of an alternative to React and Inferno. TypeScript and Flow. another one of those topics, Flameboard, NPM and Yarn, right? So we have not just alternatives, but then we have alternatives to alternatives, which is like super meta. It's almost like my books about books. Semicolons, no semicolons, right? This is like, it's 2011, it's still a topic. There's a good blog post that was released last year on Medium. I have the link in the notes. Basically, this is how it feels like to learn JavaScript right now. So this is a crazy state of JavaScript. A lot of logos, a lot of technologies, a lot of like sub-languages. They call them DSL, domain-specific language, right? So it's not like a real language, but it's like a, but still, you have to learn that, right? Browserify, TypeScript, another system to load modules, Angular. Angular is like huge, right? So you have to learn all those directives. So this talk is basically my version of a min-max function. So in 30 minutes or less, I will give you the necessary, absolutely minimum. So tonight you can go to happy hours as a social hour, and you can be perceived as someone knowledgeable in JavaScript. And then the rest of the times we can just keep arguing semicolons versus no semicolons. So Stack Overflow survey. So there is a new job which is very, very hot in San Francisco. I live close to San Francisco. I work in San Francisco. So there is a big demand for full Stack Overflow developers. Basically, developers who go to Google and search everything, right? And this data is a little bit biased, right? I'm a huge fan of JavaScript. Of course, this data is biased because the web developers look on the web, right? But still, look, JavaScript is like the top language. It's 62%. This survey was conducted by 64,000 developers. Of course, it's a little bit biased because they need to have access to internet, so maybe they're web developers. 72 web developers, 63 consider them full stack. So JavaScript allows you now to do the full stack. What is full stack? So basically, you develop on the browser, on the server side, then maybe database as well. MongoDB uses JavaScript interface, right? This is brilliant. Like my brain thinks 10 times faster when I don't have to switch the language. I don't have to switch the context. This is amazing. It's great for productivity. And then also for the DevOps. DevOps, this is a new niche now. It used to be like IT operations. It was a separate team. There would be those bearded guys, and they would know all the Unix commands by their heart. Like, no, now you don't even need to know that. You sign up for AWS account, just put your credit card, and you can spin up instances in minutes, right? Sometimes you don't even need to know what is happening. Just download a blueprint, and boom, it's working. I just did a talk on serverless. It's amazing technology. And part of it is JavaScript. JavaScript, that's what powers this full stack movement. Like if you look at job boards in Silicon Valley, in San Francisco, it's all full stack, full stack, full stack, full stack engineers, right? Or generalists. Another name is generalist. So ES 2015. Let me give you a quick overview. If you're still not using ES 2015, you should be using by now. Should be using it 2 years already. So it's not a new, but if for some of you, it's still not your primary syntax, let me give you the most important things, only important things. ES 2015 is huge. ES6, another name, it's huge. I'll give you only the gist, right? So fat arrow functions. They're just like a normal asynchronous functions, but they would also provide you the proper context of THIS, of this. So it will bind that value. So it's not going to mutate, it's not going to change, which will prevent you from bugs. Okay, so fat arrow functions, they're great, and you don't have to type the word function. Then promises. Promises, I'm a Node.js guy, more of a back end, right? But I still do the front end with React especially. So for me, promises, they're not that big of a deal, but I understand why a lot of, especially front end engineers, they like promises, right? So promises, they allow you to write asynchronous code. They are good for some projects and some people. Object literal. So now JavaScript object is more like a class. You can extend from other objects. You can define dynamic properties. It's just crazy what you can do with just simple object literals. And then obviously we have classes. So ES6 classes, They're pretty much everywhere, Angular, React, so you need to know how to use construct, how to call super, how to define methods. So you don't need to type a colon anymore, you don't need to type word function, you just put a parenthesis. So please, please, please learn and know how to read this code, because this code is already here, it's not future, it's not new, it's already here. Modules. So modules, ES6 modules, it's really great to have them. Unfortunately, we don't have implementation. It's not as ubiquitous. The implementation is still lacking, but we have the standard at least. And then we have a couple more releases of ECMAScript, of JavaScript. Again, only important things. Async await functions. Async await functions are great, great, great. They are replacement of promises and replacement of pure callbacks, replacement of generators as well. The promise libraries, they're compatible with async functions. So that's a good thing. Async await function, at least in my humble opinion, they have more eloquent syntax than promises. You have to type less. The only disadvantage you need to put try catch, right? But they're great. Trailing commas and functions, it's a small change, but it makes code more consistent, because now we can have the trailing commas and functions. Before we could have them in objects and arrays. So now you can make a git commit, and you don't need to modify 2 lines. You can just modify 1 line, because it's okay to have the last trailing comma. If you want to learn more, go and check my blog posts. webablog.com/ES6, and then another blog post, it's on Node University, ES7, ES8. So the slides are located at this GitHub repository. It's azat-co/stage-js, so you don't need to take pictures, but yeah, taking pictures would also work. And then I also recorded a few courses. Why I recommend courses? Because there is no ums, there is no awkward pauses. You just watch that at your own convenience. Self-paced courses, also on Node University. Okay, so, okay, let's wait. Okay, good. Okay, so how to use that? So in a situation when you have to support old browsers, like i8 or i9, they would never support this new language, right? But there is a workaround. Babel, that's what you would use. And also you can look at this link. It has a nice table which will give you what features are already implemented, what are not. Even the new features which are coming this upcoming year. So Babel preset, and you would use this configuration in your either package.json or babel.rc, okay? So we also have JavaScript Flavors. CoffeeScript version 2 came out. I'm a huge fan of CoffeeScript. Before I was joking that CoffeeScript, it's a solution without a problem. But then I joined DocuSign, and they used CoffeeScript. So I'm like, okay, it makes sense. It's a nice language, and now we have the version 2 of this language. TypeScript. TypeScript is really popular in enterprises, where you have those big applications. You have a lot of Java developers coming into JavaScript and full stack. They like to have the strong typing. Flow is another alternative. Elm. Elm seems to be a really fun functional language. So basically, there are like 2 camps of thought in programming. One is object-oriented, and another one is functional. So Elm, it's purely functional. JavaScript has this conflicted nature. It's a little bit functional, a little bit object-oriented, right? So you can spin it both ways. ClojureScript, again, fully functional. Great if you're already working with Clojure. And yeah. For CSS, so there are 4 main ways how to process CSS. So CSS is a broken language. It's not even like a real language, because it doesn't have inheritance. It's a bunch of cascading style sheets. How many hours I spent, it's crazy to think about. I spent so many hours trying to debug some CSS issues because some style in a completely different place was overriding my style. And then I would put import, and it would work, right? How many of you used import? Yeah, it's like a sin to use import. It's an anti-pattern. But it works, so who cares, right? Unless you need to use second import, then. So Aphrodite, I really like this approach. Most developers use it with React. It allows you to make your styles inline. So basically like full circles. Like before, remember before in like 1990s and early 2000, we would write inline styles, and then people would say, no, 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 you need to create a separate style sheet. So now we're going back to that. We're writing inline because of this CSS problem, because it doesn't have good inheritance and it overwrites. So Aphrodite will allow you to do that. CSS modules basically create a CSS file, and you can use Webpack and require or import to import that CSS file, and then Webpack will do its magic. It will even insert script tag in your HTML. It can do that. And less than Sass, there are languages that will that has functions. They have variables. They allow extension, etc. So some of those approaches, they're better than plain CSS. Okay, so this is probably the meatiest topic, frameworks. Okay, so there was a huge kind of a scandal and drama regarding the licensing, React licensing. My teammate, Jim Zaginski, he is giving a talk on open source. So he is the founder of Apache Foundation. And they basically prohibited to use React because React decided to use React as basically a weapon in those patent wars. So if someone tries to use Facebook, they cannot because they would just take their license of React back. And there was a huge kind of backslash, and people didn't like it, right? And the new version of React, they have MIT license, which is a really good license. It's permissive. It doesn't have any crazy clauses about the patent wars, right? So the new version of React, React 16, that's what you should be looking at. Or some of the libraries, such as Pure React or Inferno. They're almost completely compatible with the React code, but they offer different features, and usually they're lighter. They're lighter and smaller. So for some projects, you don't even need React. You can just plug Pure React and use it. It's similar, like similar comparison to Vue and Angular. So Vue, it's a little bit simpler. Is that true? It's a little bit smaller than Angular.
Oh, I don't do.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just asking because I thought you're an Angular developer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then Ember. Ember is still like a big player. It's a huge opinionated framework. So Angular, Ember, they are bigger frameworks. They do more for you. They have routing. They have the database support. React doesn't do any of that. React is just a Vue library. So with React, you would start small and then maybe add a couple other libraries such as Redux or React Router. And then you would build a full-blown application. It's just a different philosophy, different approach. With React, you start small and then you keep adding and customizing. With Angular, you start big and then maybe use some of that, maybe no. Who knows? Backbone, I love Backbone. Yeah, I know, it's jQuery, it's direct manipulation of the DOM, it's slow as heck, but I like it. I have nostalgia from the time working at Storify and DocuSign. APIs, so how many of you use RESTful APIs? Okay, so that might change pretty fast. This thing, it's called GraphQL, it's coming, it's already here. Why? Well, when you build RESTful APIs and you build a front-end application, then you need to go back and add certain endpoints. And then let's say your data changes, right? So designer comes and designer is like, oh, we really need to to have a new field here. And then what you do? You go back to Node.js Express. If you use Java, I'm sorry. With GraphQL, it's just brilliant. It's just so brilliant. So basically, you have your front-end code, you have React components, and you describe data right there. And that's it. You would get exactly the data you need, you want. So you only modify in one place in your React component. How it's implemented? Well, GraphQL, typically on the backend, it has just one endpoint, maybe two. So just one URL, it never changes. And then in your request, in the body of that request, you're actually specifying what data you need. So maybe today you just need a couple fields. Tomorrow is going to be 10 more fields, right? But you don't need to go to the backend. You don't need to email backend team. You have all the control. So we front-end developers, or if you're full stack, when you're in the role of a front-end developer, you don't need anything. Like you describe your data using this query language, GraphQL. So I think it's brilliant. A similar pattern is called CQRS. That's kind of like a general idea. It's called CQRS. Apollo and Relay, they are libraries which will allow you to, especially with React Stack, they will allow you to use GraphQL even better, even easier. You don't need it, you don't need them. You can just create a regular post request or a get request using Axios or Super Agent or Request, one of those HTTP agents. But Apollo and Relay worth taking out. Apollo seems to be simpler than Relay or Relay Modern. And then we have some other backends. Typically, they're real-time, such as Firebase. Firebase is also backend as a service. Google bought them. But it's very simple to use. Just one line of JavaScript, you include it, initialize, and you have backend. You can have authentication and other things. Meteor and Falcor, sort of similar to Firebase. They're more proprietary, and but they have the backend support. What about testing? So testing, Mocha is still a giant in the room. It's probably the default choice for the majority of new projects. It has a lot of features. It supports a lot of languages, obviously Chai, expect, should, and assert. But now we have Jest. Jest is great because it has this thing, it's called JS DOM. So before, to test your front-end application, you would need to spin up a headless browser, such as Phantom, or if you use Selenium, WebDriver, or Casper.js. So not anymore. Especially if you're using React. React components, they're very simple. You have input and output. So you can test them without having a headless browser, which greatly speeds up the testing and simplifies, makes it more predictable. And Jest has this JS DOM built into that. So Jest, it's a nice framework, especially if you're already using React Stack. Enzyme, people usually use Enzyme with Jest together. Okay, another couple cool features worth mentioning. Webpack. Webpack, it's a build tool for compiling files, transforming them from ES6 into ES5 maybe, adding some features and for your dependency management. But Webpack has hot module reloading, replacement or reloading. So what it will do for your development, it will greatly speed up the development. So without HMR, what will happen? Maybe you have live reloading. What is live reloading? So you make a file change, you save it, and then the browser using WebSockets will determine that your application has changes. It will reload the entire application, right? So you will have the page reload, which is convenient. It's good. You don't have to press Command R every time. It will save you from repetitive stress injury. Maybe not. With this thing, it's just magic. So I can have a big form, or I can have a complex application with multiple screens. And let's say I'm somewhere deep inside. So it takes me 10 clicks to get there, right? And every time the page reloads, I'm losing that state. So it's not convenient. I have to do those 10 clicks over and over again. With this thing, only the changes will be seen. The page would not be reloaded. So basically, I have like a model, it will stay. I have a form with some data, it will stay. So only my changes will be there. The entire page would not be reloaded. So if just for this feature, I would still switch to Webpack, highly recommended, hot module reloading. And then we get into some other direction. So I like functional a little bit more than object-oriented programming. And I like to be able to quickly build prototypes. But I understand that I'm not like some other developers, especially in the enterprise. In the enterprise, you have a lot of teams. You do a lot of inner sourcing. So it's very important to be able to reuse that code and build on top of that code, right? Not to reinvent the wheel. And static analysis, what is static analysis? So basically, it's tools which allows you to analyze your code without running it. So when I have var equals 1, and then I'm using it as a string, static analysis tool will catch it, right? Because I actually declared a number. Without static analysis, I won't be able to catch it. I need to do either manual testing or I need to do automated testing, but then I need to write those tests, which is, it takes time. I love testing, but it takes time. So especially for enterprise developer, consider using some of those tools. But how would you use that? Because JavaScript, it's a loosely typed language. Well, we have two big alternatives, TypeScript and Flow. TypeScript, it's more mature. Typically, for Angular, you would use TypeScript because especially the new version of Angular, they use TypeScript by default. And some people say it's faster than Flow. Flow, it's mostly for React stack, and it's not as intrusive. With Flow, you can introduce it gradually. With TypeScript, my perception that you'd have to just switch completely to TypeScript. And stop using Notepad++. Seriously, I'm teaching workshops almost every month. I probably taught 50 workshops through the last couple years. Still, people use Notepad++. We have great code editors. VS Code, highly, highly recommended. Microsoft and the open source community, they did a great job. It has smart autocomplete. They call it IntelliSense. So basically, it will try to guess whatever module you're using and then populate that dropdown. So it will tell you what methods, it will tell you what is the signature of a function. So basically, everything that Java developers already had for years, now we finally have it with JavaScript. Debugger, Git, terminal. Yes, you can use a separate tools, but if you have them in your editor right there, it might be faster, it might be nicer to use them. And my personal favorite, it's just JavaScript. So you can extend it. So if you want to write a package, it's JavaScript, right? So under the hood, it's built on Node.js, which is server-side JavaScript, and then a little bit of CSS and HTML using Electron. Atom, I used to use Atom before, now I switched to VS Code. Node.js, so let's talk about Node.js, the state of Node.js as well. So in Node.js 8, that's the latest stable version, long-term release version, we have util.promisify. So if you use this function, util, it's a core method, you can basically promisify or async awaitify any normal callback method, such as, for example, there is fs, core fs, file system module, so fs.readFile. So just pass it to promisify, you get a promise. Now we're not stuck with just one JavaScript engine. So if for some reason Google Chrome V8 is not your choice, you can pull the Microsoft, the engine that renders Edge browser, which is called Chakra. So you can switch Node.js to a different engine. Maybe Chakra has some features which Chrome V8 doesn't have yet. Maybe you have some other code to integrate with that. HTTP 2. So if you're not already building for HTTP 2, your especially public-facing applications, you're behind. HTTP 2 is already here. Most modern browsers, they support HTTP 2. A lot of big websites, they already switched to HTTP 2. It's more secure because you cannot use HTTP, you cannot use non-SSL with HTTP 2, so you'll be forced into using SSL, so that's good. It's also support multiple requests. So all your web development optimization practices, such as bundling files, maybe you don't need them anymore with HTTP 2 because now you don't need to have one giant file. You can have multiple files. They will be downloaded asynchronously at the same time in parallel. Also, you can push some files ahead of time. So if you know you need some files, you can push them using HTTP 2. So HTTP 2, it's coming to the core of Node.js. Maybe it's already here by the time we end this talk. So use Node v8, version 8. And NPM version 5. And we also see large enterprise adoption of Node.js. Companies such as IBM, Intel, Microsoft, Google started. They finally woke up that Node.js, it's a great thing. So how organizations use Node.js? 75% for the backend, and then, again, the full stack, and the front end, especially the dev tools. But Node.js is also great for DevOps. Maybe you want to write a simple deployment script. Maybe you want to format your data before you push it to production or QA. So all those tools. Mobile, React Native is a good technology. Native script, we have a booth downstairs at the first floor. Native, that's an Angular technology which you can use to build native applications using JavaScript and some Angular syntax or Vue. Okay, so future. Let's talk about the future. We all like the predictions, right? The magic ball, the future. Okay, so ES 2018 coming, obviously. It's coming in a few months. What will be there? So for now, just one feature, 100% guaranteed. So the way it works, there are 4 stages. So the stage 4 is called final. That will land in this release. Everything else, we don't know. So stage 3, they might not. Probably they will end up in the release. I would not list all of them. You can just Google or go on GitHub. I have the links to read more about them. But I will tell you about 3 which I'm most excited about. Import. Import will be similar to require in Node.js. Because right now, import in ES6, it's static. You need to know ahead of time what is the name, which is, it's kind of not flexible. But it's good for static analysis, right? So import with the parentheses, it's like a method, like a function. It will load modules dynamically, which my hope, it will make the implementation in Node.js very easy. It will be just one line. Import equals require. That's implementation in Node. Global, we'll have global, which is coming from Node.js. So that's another good thing for cross-platform, moving the code from Node.js to browser and vice versa. And yeah, if you look at the slides, probably from Fortune 500 companies, now the question is who is not using Node.js, right? So the answer is probably there is no such company. Summary, so learn ECMAScript. It's here. This is the language, ES6, ES7, ES8, and now we will have ES9 soon in a few months. Use either Webpack. If you're using Webpack, hot module reloading, maybe Gulp will already have it as well. Add Flow, Redux, React Router, and React if needed. Consider Vue instead of Angular. Especially stop using Angular 1. So, and Angular 2, 4 is better. The change between Angular 1 to Angular 2 was so dramatic and people so didn't like it, developers so didn't like it. So Angular team promised there would be no version 3 of Angular. They just released version. That's what they did. They just released version 4. And switch to VS Code. So JavaScript is not a toy language anymore. Now we have it in many platforms, mobile, embedded systems, IoT, etc. It's used by startups, big companies, enterprises, medium-sized companies. And every year we have those ECMAScript releases, so it becomes more and more feature-rich. The future is really bright. Blockchain and DApps, they support JavaScript. Virtual reality, you have React libraries for virtual reality. Mobile, Internet of Things. And then clouds, like the serverless, AWS Lambda, Microsoft Azure, like one of the first languages they started to support, it was JavaScript and Node. Some of the links, how you can connect with me, send me some questions. I also have coupons. I'm running a promotion just for this conference, limited time offer. It's 80% discount for Node University. I have 20 courses. You can chat with me on a private Slack channel and 30-day money-back guarantee. But you need to use the coupon and sign up now. It's on the back. Thanks for listening, and let's hit to the social hour. Questions? Yes? Yeah, I've heard about it. Yeah, it looks good. I didn't build anything in production with it.
So I've seen like .NET apply a lot of the JavaScript principles to it. So do you personally prefer JavaScript over other statically typed languages? Or is JavaScript your go-to?
Yeah, JavaScript. So the question is, would I prefer JavaScript over other static type languages? Yes. For the last 5 years, I've been focusing on it. And it's really not that big of a problem that it's not statically typed. And then we have Flow, TypeScript, to make it statically typed. But the benefit, JavaScript is the only language that natively runs in the browser, unless we have WebAssembly, but it might take a few years, right? So it's the only natively run language. So there's no way of doing software engineering, which is almost synonymous to web development, without JavaScript, right? So having that ability of one language, right, it's great. You can reuse code. You can do a lot of cool things. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Don't forget the coupons.